Hey, Anita.
Hey, Karen.
How's it going?
Fine. You ready to do our podcast this week?
I sure am. Let's do
Let's go.
this.
Let's go.
Blue wave, we rise to save the day. Only me, only you can let our hearts sail away on a blue wave.
So, Anita, today we are thrilled to be joined by Cliff Schecter of Blue Amp Channel, Biden 20 ad writer, daily YouTube commentary on Blue Amp Channel, and then also CEO of BlueAmpStrategies.com, best-selling author of The Real McCain, Daily Beast contributor, and of course, regular contributor to Stephanie Miller, Bob Seska, and Media Busters 6. Welcome, Cliff.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes, we're
so
very
happy
excited that you are taking the time to be on our podcast. Really, thank you.
Yes.
My pleasure. It was
This is
It's always nice to get an invite, right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
It's better than the alternative. Yeah, so we are.
Hey, you
this
guys
is
can invite
official-
anybody, and you decide to invite me, so I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh my gosh, you are the biggest name I think we've had so far. I think so.
And you're amazing on Steph's show. We really like the whole alpha liberal stuff that you represent. And, when you're on there and talk about that.
That's been. If it's okay for me to say something about that, that's been. I feel like I've been. What's the right word? Almost like a preacher, although that word scares me. On that for 15 years now, because the simple fact of the matter is that if you understand marketing, then you understand psychology, which I wasn't a psych minor, but I almost ended up going in that direction. If you just know the way people's minds work, we all want to believe that we live in this perfect post-enlightenment world where reason rules everything and logical arguments decide who wins.
Nope.
But if you understand how it works, that's not how it works at all. I mean, there's a percentage of people that are smart enough that make decisions based on that. But for the most part, again, if you're not projecting strength, you're projecting weakness. If you're not on offense, you're on defense. If you find yourself ever saying to a Republican things like "shame on you," as if they have any shame, or I'm above that. What you're doing then is you're giving up a messaging opportunity to go on a counteroffensive and hit back. And we would see sporadic, Democrats here and there, some that would do it. But the problem is, as we all know, culture is what it's like the horrible MAGA culture that's taken over the Republican Party. If you're not MAGA, you feel a need to be, or you feel a need to leave because they are the dominant force. The dominant force in the Democratic Party was we're above this. We don't engage in this kind of, and it cost us a lot of elections.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I'd make an argument it was that attitude that led to us not losing the recount in Florida while they were doing everything in their power in 2000. I think it's obviously why Mike Dukakis lost to Bush in '88. And I can
the ACA argument, all the arguments around the ACA, the Obamacare.
Yeah, well, that's right. We wouldn't define what it was. We would let them call it stuff like death panels, and we were above that. And I loved Obama. But, and whatever, but I thought that's where some of his, when he was elected president, some of his inexperience came through, and some of, that he didn't get what he was up against. And the culture of the Democratic Party, especially inside Washington, was, that's just the Republicans being the Republicans again. But just the Republicans being the Republicans again is them.
There's such a low bar for them. Yeah. Yeah,
is them winning elections and harming our country and harming us. So, I like to, look, I don't, not for any reason, because I need anybody to give me any plaudits. I just like to think and hope that maybe, when I started speaking out and others started speaking out, I think one of the early voices I give a lot of credit to. He's been an interesting character, let's say, online since, but Keith Olbermann, who started doing some of that on MSNBC, and there were others.
He got a lot of pushback for that, though. He got a lot.
Oh my God. He did. Yeah. Well, look, I know the pushback he got because I because I was too mean to people like Cleta Mitchell and Brad Blakeman. I got banned for about 3-4 years. Yeah, that was even with what MSNBC did recently with Ronna McDonald's or whatever the hell her name is. The MSNBC people forget of 2006, 7, 8 had Alan Keyes on, Tucker Carlson. It was a decidedly.
I remember it. Yep.
They were trying to court conservatives in a very serious way. So if a conservatives went to them and complained, Cliff's mean. He doesn't act like a liberal who just sits there and takes it. And so they got me effectively on a list. And I know this because one of the hosts there at the time told me that I was on the list, or they couldn't book me unless it was absolutely, and that happened. Eventually, I didn't care anymore, and I moved out to Ohio, to Cincinnati, and they in the pre-Zoom era, they didn't like paying for uplinks and all that. They wanted you to be in New York or DC, so it didn't matter anymore anyhow. I mean, they would have me on every once in a while when an article of mine in the Daily Beast went viral. But the point I'm trying to make is, I make no apologies for that. I'm glad I did it. In fact, I got the opportunity in 2004 because even as horrible as they are, Sinclair Media understood that controversy got eyeballs. So I was the one liberal analyst who they would have on to debate, like usually at least one conservative and the host who's conservative, and sometimes more than that. But I looked at that as a challenge because as far as I'm concerned, they're so dumb. I'll take 5 of them on, It doesn't mean I'm so terrific. It means they're them. And so I got opportunities like that. And obviously, about Stephanie and things of that nature. But and thankfully, I was able to kind of forge a career for myself where I was able to be successful and all of that. But again, being a liberal who fought back was absolutely a negative at that period of time. It could only hurt you. And we needed the culture to change. We needed more voices in the media. We needed more elected officials, appointed officials to be willing to do that. And I'm not going to pick a moment, but when at some point a couple of years ago, even further than that, when I was writing some of the ads I wrote for the then Vice President Biden in 2020, they were willing to go further than I thought they were, even with some of the things they wouldn't. I mean, they started using the F word and calling Trump a semi-fascist, even semi.
Yep, I remember that. Yep.
The fact that they were willing to throw that out into I consider it. So it took a while, and we still have a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. But it's so nice on my channel that one day I can have Jasmine Crockett on, and the next day Ted Lieu, and the next day Jamie Raskin. And when I say have them on, not as guests, but grab clips and do my analysis of how they're. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on here, but they're not taking shit anymore. And
no, you say it. Yeah.
No. And look at the clips of them. They all go so viral. I mean, they're so popular. I've never understood this way of thinking that for the media, when they want us to be, they want to bend over backwards to try to court, I guess, a centrist or whatever that is. And all you end up doing is pissing everybody off. And nobody
they're the worst. I mean, there's no explanation except for advertising dollars and corporate sloth and stupidity.
Yes.
Because again, conservatives at this point, there's a whole bunch of them. I mean, there's a reason Newsmax exists and that crazy OAN existed and certain other places, because some of them don't even think Fox is conservative enough. Like,
I know.
Hello, Chris Licht. They're
you
not
cannot make
those
people happy. Yep.
Hello, MSNBC. They're not, or NBC. They're not coming to you either. You're not. Like, if you want to win Republicans, have a Joe Walsh as a contributor. Have a conservative who, and even if you want to have a conservative who supported Trump, all right, but didn't support the insurrection and spoke out and said that was wrong. Ken Buck, do that.
Right. Ken Buck has been on MSNBC several times.
I'm talking about as a contributor, though. Instead of Ronna McDaniel, if you want to pay somebody to bring those points of view, I don't have a problem with that. But if you are advocating against democracy, there should be no place for you on television.
But even MSNBC has been taken over by Republicans. I mean, there really is no place for Democrats or liberals.
I mean, here's what I would say. There are some good moments or some liberal voices or whatever on MSNBC.
Not enough. Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to defend MSNBC because, as I say again and again, I hate all cable and, and I don't watch TV news. I think it's all garbage. I think even MSNBC is pandering to ratings often and doing whatever. I'm not insulting every host there or every person there. Some of them do great work, but it's
Of
I mean,
course.
it's funny. The
Chris
freedom
Hayes,
that comes with,
yeah.
the freedom that comes with having absolutely no urge to ever get an MSNBC contract, which is I'd rather be with my kids or doing my work than, or building my channel. I don't, so that gives me the freedom to say whatever I want. And I think it's all garbage. It all plays up these polls that are again and again, they're proven wrong. We have real elections like the one in Alabama where we outperform what we're supposed to do by, 35 points. And instead they're looking at some stupid poll that's telling them that something that we already know to be wrong, because every time live human people vote in either the primaries or in special elections, we win. So, and Trump loses.
Something is off. Yeah.
Trump routinely loses 30 to 40% of Republicans, even though nobody else is running anymore. And Biden tends to lose between 8 and 12% of Democrats, some of whom even admit they're just doing it as a protest on certain issues, and they'll vote for him in the fall. So,
Democrats have been overperforming since 2020, and Republicans have been underperforming.
So my whole point is like all that news media does, as far as I'm concerned, today, network could not have predicted it better. It's garbage for eyeballs, for advertising, for this, for that, with some good stuff, some decent people, some whatever mixed in. And the only, I mean, when there's a disaster, like when January 6th was happening, I turned on the news on TV to quickly see what the hell was going on. When there's an election night, I do. Otherwise, the rule for me in my house is none of that crap. I would rather be watching a baseball game, an old episode of Breaking Bad, reading a book, playing with my kids, or doing 10,000 other things before I would ever turn on, forget Fox, before I'd ever turn on CNN or MSNBC. I have no interest.
Yeah, well, and I think, so if I can circle back, you were talking about that moment when there was a shift with the Democratic members of Congress, that it started kind of changing, so I remember, when we were being lectured by Chuck Schumer to be civil and, and all that.
Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. Yeah.
And it's all well and good. And it's like, we should be able to do that. But unfortunately, these guys are street fighters, and we're coming to it. You know what I mean? So we have to match that.
Can you imagine if you go into a boxing match and the other guy keeps, and you're just, I mean, we've seen it before. You go in a boxing match, the other guy's biting your ear off, but you're like, nah, I'm not gonna hit him back. The thing I said, because I tried to say this in as nice a way as I could, because I absolutely believe Michelle Obama to be just a wonderful, accomplished, brilliant, elegant, terrific lawyer, terrific mother, terrific everything. But one thing that she isn't terrific at, she is not a terrific political consultant. She does not understand. She hasn't run for office.
She doesn't like politics. She doesn't. She
she doesn't want to do it, and I don't blame her. That's fine. But she doesn't get. She does not understand the atmosphere of a mainstream media that both sides is everything or leans Republican. She doesn't understand the atmosphere of a right-wing media that is nothing more or nothing less than a large propaganda apparatus that lies constantly and character assassinates and the rest. And you can't win against those kinds of folks when you say shame on you and you're above it and you don't want to fight back and you don't want to. You just can't. I mean, I won't pick one moment, and this is certainly too late in the game, but I will say, it started happening. What my point is, a couple years ago at least, and has picked up steam as you said. The clips have gotten more viral. More people like me have spoken out and pushed it and whatever. And some friends of mine who are still working for Democrats on the inside push this too. So I know that's happening. But the one person I will give a ton of credit to, and it isn't to take away from 50 others I can name and will name if you want me to. I've named some of them already. But because of his position, Gavin Newsom has been so incredibly important in this.
Oh my God, he's
the governor of a state that is, that has it's not twice the size of the next biggest state, but it's 1.5 times in the next biggest state. It is the 5th or 6th biggest economy in the world. It is essential. It is where Hollywood is. It is where Silicon Valley is. It's essential to this country, which they can't stand. And so he has a really, really, really big microphone. And the things he's done, from running ads purposely in Texas and Florida to get in their faces, had to paint with DeSantis where he destroyed him and stayed on, and then he made to me was the comment that I think I still, one of the ones I quote the most often. He's like, we have a story to tell. They have lies. We should be on offense constantly.
Yep.
They should be on defense.
Yep, he's the best surrogate for Biden.
The news.
Yep.
We should be controlling the news narrative every single day, going out there, telling people what we believe, speaking to people in emotional terms, how it will help them, how everything the other side will do will harm them, is an attack on democracy. I mean, I'm paraphrasing now, but he said this when to a stupefied Kristen Welker, probably about a month and a half ago.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And it was a perfect summary of what we need to do and what I've seen so much more from. Again, like, I hate to do this because I always feel like I'm leaving out the Adam Schiffs or the Eric Swalwells or I'm leaving out Gretchen Whitmer or I'm leaving, Pete Buttigieg, Moskowitz. I mean, there's so many that are so good at this now.
Yes.
Again, I guess, and I don't mean this to be ageist. It's just this is more just a fact of culture is different among different generations.
And we're demanding fighters. We want fighters there.
I am Gen X, right?
Yeah.
I'm 52. So
we are. Yeah, we're there.
And I didn't get political. Some people got political when they were in high school. It didn't hit me when I saw this guy that I thought was going to be the next Kennedy named Bill Clinton in '92. Of course, he was the next Kennedy in a few too many ways, but that's a different story.
Well, it's a different time, so
he did it. It was different. Yes, it was, and I don't care. I'll always be loyal. He did a lot of good at a time. He was playing defense at a time when we had to play defense.
Exactly. Yeah. People don't understand what he was up against.
But my point is that. Like I wasn't paying the kind of attention in the 80s, except for through my folks who were very interested in politics and paid attention and whatever, growing up in New York and all that. And so I never got into what I like to refer to as the Reagan crouch, which all these elected officials saw Reagan win overwhelmingly in 80 and 84. We bowed down to him and passed his stupid tax cuts that have hamstrung this country for 40, 50 years now, that let our infrastructure fall apart until Biden finally got a bill passed that have harmed us in so many ways. And Democrats, it's like they got shell shocked and didn't come out of it and believed, oh my God, the Republicans are really popular and their leader Reagan, he's really likable, and we can't win unless we try to be like them. And it was somewhat that way right after him. Bill Clinton had to do some of that, but as time marched on,
even Barack Obama did in the beginning. Yeah,
he did in the beginning, but as time marched on and we moved forward, and people's views on everything from marriage equality to legal
trickle down economics
to gun safety to trickle down to this and that changed. Like we're on the right side of about 98% of the issues.
Exactly.
There's simply literally no reason to be in a defensive crouch to them. And you're not going to get up on a stage and have Reagan say, ha, there you go again, and make the crowd laugh at you, because he was a unicorn for that. It is very hard, same body, to have somebody that conservative and who can come off as that.
And what do the Republicans always want to do? All they want to do is cut taxes, corporate tax cuts. That's all they ever want to do.
My point is
and that is unpopular. That is
well, it is. They are the snarling, angry face. I mean, think about who the faces of conservatism are today: Trump, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're angry, they're conspiracy addled, they're liars, they're cruel, they're and they're purposely stupid about things. And so it's been waiting. This, and maybe part of it was a waiting game to say, and this is no knock on Biden's age. I've said numerous times. Do I wish there's a lot of things I wish in a perfect world. I wish I were 6'2". I'm not. I wish that Biden. I wish Biden were 20 years younger. Sure, but for somebody his age, he is all there. He is terrific. He is not the energy is incredible and all that. And
he has the experience. He has the experience. That's why he's been able to get as much done as he has.
Yes, and I think some of the older folks, some of the older folks in our caucus do not understand modern communications, did not adapt properly to the modern Republican Party, which, even though it may have started with Reagan, is no longer Reagan. They don't hide their ugly face behind a smile anymore. And didn't realize that, what are we doing here? We should be on the attack. They're unpopular. They're unlikable. And it's like it took a period of time for that generation that was the boomers scared of Reagan to move on out. And for these people that I've been naming to start coming in anywhere from Gen 60 or 60 something Gen Xers all the way down to like, 30 something Gen Z, what's his name? Frost, Maxwell Frost.
Yep.
Like none of this group was old enough, including me. I was just a 14-year-old or whatever, 15-year-old. Sorry, I don't remember most of what Reagan was and did. I remember after that. And so I remember Pat Buchanan's
Iran
speech
Contra.
in 1992 at the Republican convention. That was mean, nasty, evil, and that's the one that took over their party. That speech is what their party became.
So Anita and I were raised in it. Our parents were very, very active. I remember being in the second grade and skipping with my best girlfriend, Teresa Lyons, saying McGovern, he's our man, throw Nixon in the garbage can. Like our parents you want to talk about indoctrination, but I did.
Well, my mom hid Easter eggs. My mom hid Easter eggs that said Nixon is an egghead. I mean,
well, it was, and I'll say quickly, it was the same thing for me. I'm not trying to say, look, I was brought up in it. I heard it from an early age. That, when you're something funny, my parents, of course, eventually voted for Carter. But we had a class thing, I'll never forget, in the third grade where they split the class up by who you're supporting. And I was standing off on a corner alone saying, I'm supporting John Anderson. And I couldn't understand, because that's who they initially, the liberal Republican who actually, may have been to the left of Carter in certain things at that time. Eventually, of course, they but what my point is that there's a difference between being indoctrinated, brought up in it, and getting to a point of self-realization where you really understand it. I still didn't really understand what it was all about until I got really interested in it. About my senior year in high school, freshman year in college. So
I was in high school. I was in speech and debate, so I kind of had to immerse myself.
So I knew I was
politics.
a Democrat.
No surprise.
I knew I was whatever liberal was, right?
Yeah.
I knew I was these things, but it's different than being old enough at that time where, like some people were, and I'm not saying this happened to everybody, but who looked at Reagan and looked at this, what was then a popular Republican agenda and got so scared they just decided to crouch in a corner for the next 40 years. That didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
Nobody gave me the memo that said I have to be a wimp and that when a Republican attacks me, I don't fucking hit them back twice as hard. So
right. Yeah. So I did, because of course this last week, we saw the hiring and firing of former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, as you mentioned, by NBC executives, and you've already kind of articulated, probably the reason why that happened. So I don't. But
you mean why they hired her or why they fired her?
Yeah, and how I had mentioned on Steph, that I was listening to another great podcast,
the Professional Left,
the Professional Left podcast, with Driftglass and Blue Gal, and the fact that it got through, that decision got through multiple executives, and so to your earlier point,
for a couple months they were planning it. This is not something that
of course, I mean nothing like that just happens overnight. It's mind-boggling that they could see what happened with Chris Licht at CNN that live shit show town hall with Trump has still not recovered. Their ratings have still, because so many people who are of the moderate, disaffected Republican, independent, Democratic variety were so turned off by that. It just they lost all trust in CNN. And NBC's just lucky they moved as quickly as they did, and they didn't take months or however long, 8 months, however long Licht was there, because the same thing would have happened to them, and they're still going to suffer some fallout. Because I still know some people, friends. I think some of our common friends. I think I saw Kimberly Johnson say on MSNBC, for example, I'm still not watching. The fact that they were willing to do that should.
It was such a turnoff.
I think they will still, they won't lose me because they didn't have me. But they will lose. But I will. I do reach people that watch them, and I will say a lot more nasty things about them now. So there's that.
It's hard to believe they ever thought they could get away with that. I mean, what were they thinking?
Because you know what, and they actually, I think they touched on that. Blue Gat. It's the ad dollars, right? Like they are.
Of course, it's the ad dollars, but
It's the
Yeah.
ad dollars, and that's what it is. And it just completely, I hate this word, trumps everything else. So
Mhm.
it
No,
doesn't,
I know.
it's
I had this.
insulting to the audience. It's just, and it doesn't matter. But if I can just say this, the amazing thing that happened last week for me was the fact that all of those big personalities came out and spoke out against their bosses. But the only reason, and we have to be very clear, and this is something that we need to remember too when we're voting, and when we're talking to people about voting and calling and do postcard writing and everything, is our voice matters, because
Yeah.
even Rachel Maddow, Joe Scarborough, whatever, they heard us.
And
So
you know what else
they
I think is
actually,
important to say? I think it's
Mhm.
always important, and this is where I've gotten in fights. I mean, even I love Driftglass, but to him, no neocon can do any good. And my view of things comes from the How Democracies End book by Zyblatt and is it Levitsky or whatever?
Yes,
And,
yes.
I took, I went all the way up. I'm ABD, and I think I made. I'm trying to remember if I took that last class, but I think I'm ABD in my PhD in American history. I was studying the rise of American conservatism. So I'm not claiming I'm not an expert like the people that went through the whole thing, but I have ideas here, and their book is the one that's spoken to me the most, and what their book said, which is very clear. The countries that staved off authoritarianism are where everybody else got together, put their differences aside. So I don't care what Joe Walsh believed before, and I don't care what Tim Miller. I don't even know Tim Miller, but I know Joe Walsh. I know Fred Wellman. I know these people. I think some of them just are scared of Trump, and they care about democracy, and that's great. And I disagree with them on all sorts of policy issues. Some of them, I think, have even changed their policy beliefs now that they've opened their eyes, at least some of their beliefs, to more things. But whatever it is, I will work with any of them. And anyone, even
That's
folks
right.
on the far socialist left, who I disagree with on some things, because in the end, the goal here is to
save
preserve
democracy. Yep.
And so
I agree. So we have to, even if it's Liz Cheney or
I'm losing my train of thought, because I was saying that for a reason, and I can't remember where we were.
Well, we're talking about Driftglass and the
Well, we're talking about Ronna McDaniel.
Yeah.
I always get her. I don't know why I always want to call her McDonald's, but I do.
Me
that's
too.
what Karen calls her.
That's what I
Karen
call
calls
her.
her Ronald McDonald.
But I mean, I think I use that kind of is in a way my not my Bible for $59.99 if you'd all like to buy it, with the Declaration of Independence and Kid Rock's latest hit inside, and
Oh my God.
that is my Bible in terms of what needs to be done, and I've got obviously other sources than that, what we need to do to ensure that that the fascists don't. Well, and in this case, it's the fascists. It could be the Stalinist communists too, but that authoritarianism does
Christian
not.
nationalists.
Yep. And we'll have time after. First, we have to get rid of this
version,
immediate
right?
threat.
Like Iran, theocracy. I mean, pick your version of. I don't care what it is, that it doesn't take over, okay. So now I finally have remembered what my point was.
Okay.
I'm not quite that old yet. I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. I think it's really important when voices speak out, because we will work with anybody. I'll work with somebody for one day, even if they'll help one day. To give credit where credit's due. And I still believe the reason those MSNBC voices had the courage to speak out was, believe it or not, Chuck Todd.
Yeah.
And I will give him all the credit in the world, and usually I give him none of the credit in the world. I think he was awful at MSNBC, at Meet the Press, enabled the worst of the right. But in that one moment, and his voice was quivering, so clearly he was scared as shit to say it. But when he sat there with his bosses, knowing his bosses are watching, and said that to Kirsten Welker, that it's ridiculous you were even put in that position of having to talk to her, and that she was allowed on air, whatever he said, I think he's very high up in that company. Yeah. When Chuck Todd said that because that's why it's so important that every act of courage begets more. And that's why every single act matters. Because
and we have to be welcoming to these people when they do.
Like what I said about the Democratic Party when a few voices speak out and have courage and hit Republicans back, others look at them and say, I can do that. Why aren't I doing that? And it's the same thing here. When I do believe in giving credit, because I probably on the if you want to do a balance sheet, like accounting, Chuck Todd would be way in the red with me.
Yes.
I've ripped the living shit out of him for years and have thought that every single time it was justified. But I also believe that when somebody does something really good, I don't care. They deserve credit for that. And
Mike Pence came out and he wasn't going to endorse. That's the first time a former
when he did
vice
that.
president.
I think he made the difference. I do, and I think it's a huge difference because when he did it, then members of MSNBC, he gave people online more courage,
people permission.
And the fact that she's not going to be there to lie on behalf of Trump during this election. I mean, we still have to keep our guard up because they may try to slip another one in.
Yes.
So they're not to be trusted. But the fact that Chuck Todd started that parade. I mean, again, if I always believe in having integrity. And if I'm going to rip people when they're terrible, they deserve credit when they do the right thing, and they especially a huge thing like that. So Chuck Todd deserves credit for that.
I literally thought I saw pigs flying past my window. Sorry, you were taking a drink. No, I mean really.
If I'd spat it on my computer, this would all be over, and I'd probably have to. Sadly, we'd have to stop. But luckily, I held that one in. Pigs fly. See, like this.
Yeah.
We actually have something because Cincinnati used to be called Porkopolis because a lot of the pork was produced here. That we have a race here called the Flying Pig. So,
really?
Now you know a little bit about Cincinnati you never knew.
This episode of TruBlu Politics is brought to you by Night Sky Woodworks, featuring gorgeous products like cutting boards, cheese and charcuterie boards, and beautiful tea light holders, all crafted in their Chicago, Illinois wood shop. All of which have eye-catching designs and make the perfect complementary piece for any kitchen or living room. If you use TruBlu, that's TruBlu, at checkout on their Etsy shop, you get 10% off any order, which is a pretty great deal if you ask me. So go check out their in-stock designs today, or message your custom order request on their Etsy shop today by visiting etsy.com/shop/nightskywoodworks and use TruBlu at checkout for 10% off. That's etsy.com/shop/NITESKYE woodworks and use code TruBlu, TruBlu at checkout for 10% off. Looking for the perfect gift or just want to treat yourself? Life So Full has you covered with everything from handbags, wallets, and travel bags to lanyards and more, all lovingly and uniquely handcrafted. Learn more at lifesoful.com. That's spelled LIFESEWFULL.com and enter code TruBlu, TruBlu at checkout for 15% off your next purchase. Hurry! Offer expires May 15th, 2024.
So did you happen to see clip of the way they reacted on Fox News to the MSNBC letting Ronna McDaniel go? I mean, they were ridiculous.
I mean, I've seen a few different clips. I saw one of like the 5 where Jessica Tarloff is so good.
No, not that one. Yeah, she is.
Yeah, no, they were talking. Yeah, they were talking about we'll play.
They called it insubordination.
Insubordination.
Turn this around. Like if somebody said this at Fox News, they'd be walked out the door.
Yeah, this is unbelievable.
This is enormous insubordination.
Enormous. You would expect something like this from Joe Scarborough. He's a far left opinion commentator. But I was really disappointed to hear Chuck Todd, someone who is a journalist, comment on this in that fashion.
They could not understand how somebody.
Do they understand words and what they mean? Insubordination is a military term. What the fuck are they talking about?
Exactly.
Who knows? But
exactly. Well, everything to them. Yeah, everything to them is a dictatorship, right?
No, you're right. Everything's war.
Right.
You're right. Makes sense.
And so they would rather just send text messages about how much they really hate Trump than actually, say it out loud on their network or say anything negative about him.
There's 3 groups, right? there's the ever shrinking and almost now non-existent. It may just be Lisa Murkowski. I don't know, because now that Gallagher left and Ken Buck left, and they were too willing to speak out against Trump. And again, I'm not saying I love them, and I'm not saying I agree with them on most things, but there's just this couple of those that are left. You know, a governor here and there. Also, even though Sununu, what a fucking coward. But whatever, for another time. So there's that. There's I do think a huge swath of Republicans that if we are, that are such utter cowards that are with Trump simply because they know what he is, because they just need power, they need whatever. And to me, that huge group of cowards is the reason why, as much as anything, that look, I will take a 1-vote win in this election if Biden holds on. Let's be clear. Yeah. But it's the reason why we need to work our asses off. Yes. When we're seeing things like that vote in Alabama, I tried to point out to people that Swazi got all of the press because that was the biggest race. And it was kind of important that Santos—
He ran on immigration too. So he ran on immigration.
Right. That Santos had won that race by 7 points. And Swazi in the end won it by 7 to 8, even though the polls were saying it was tied. Under so long again. So that was a 15 point switch from before. But the bigger stories that day that people didn't even know about, I think, were there were 2 races. One was to hold on to the state house in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And there was a district there. We were never, it was almost impossible for us to lose. It was a plus 16 Democratic district. But here the punchline is that candidate didn't win by 16. That candidate won by 35.
Yes, and that's been happening a lot. Yeah.
And then that same day, also in Oklahoma, and I think it was either a state house or a state senate, right? Well, it was definitely one or the other. I think it was state house. We had a candidate that, by the polling, it was a hugely Republican district. We were supposed to get killed. We were supposed to win 27% of the vote based on registration. We won 47% and almost won. So when you see how much,
what do you think is causing that? Why do you think the polls are so wrong?
Well, I think there's a lot that goes into that. I think there is the fact that polls now are part of the whole bullshit ad dollars thing. The media just wants to put on what they think will cause controversy, what get people to pay attention. I think polling is almost a dead art. And I worked at 2 polling firms. I think it's very difficult to get a good sample.
It's hard to get anybody to even answer those questions.
When I was starting off in polling, we considered you get a good sample if you talk to seriously 600 people. I don't think with anything less than 20,000. I just think so many kids only have cell phones. I only have a cell phone. Aren't answering them. I don't answer mine anymore if I don't know where it's
I don't answer mine either. Unknown number. I don't. Yeah.
So I think all of that, but I think it's also they cannot measure enthusiasm, and they can't measure what polls do is they ask you to consider you to be a likely voter. They will ask you if you've voted in the last 2 regular elections. That is one of the screeners that we would use. And what you're seeing is all sorts of people that either fell off of voting or kids that just aged in and whatever, who are looking at this insane fucking, in vitro fertilization ruling, the abortion ruling, attacks on birth control, the attacks on democracy, the school shootings. Again, we go on forever. I think women's rights and democracy are the 2 top issues, and I would say secondarily, guns, climate, and some of the economic hardships of a variety of them. Of the minimum wage not going up in since what?
Plus saving democracy.
Well, no, I said that democracy to me is tied first with women's issues. If you ask folks, and so we're outperforming these things by that much. And so I think the point that I was trying to make overall is you win by 1 vote and beat Trump. Then as long as Trump's not president, I'm a happy man. But if you want to look at history, the way to beat Trumpism, and especially with that huge faction of fucking cowards, because there's no other way to put them, who will go in the Republican Party whatever way the wind blows, is besides Trump, we need to use that 7-8 point advantage. Which, by the way, that's what they've measured, has been the average movement in the Democratic direction post Dobbs has been an 8 point move.
Wow.
Now, if you applied that to the presidential race, we'd win Ohio, we'd win Iowa, we'd win Texas, we'd win Florida. I mean, we'd be missing a few other swing states. So what I'm saying is, I don't want to get people to a point where it's like, oh, well, if we don't win in a landslide, it's a failure. We need to win every single race we could win, every vote we can win, and any win is a win. But a landslide where you take out a number of the big faces, the avatars, if you will, not just Trump.
Ted Cruz's.
You're not right. Ted Cruz in Texas, Rick Scott in Florida.
That's
Either one of those guys, I pointed out to people, Ted Cruz won his last race by 2.5 points over Beto in a more Republican Texas. Rick Scott has never won by more than 1.2%. And he spends millions of dollars. 2 of his 3 races, he won by under half a point. Those, they are both hugely beatable. If you were to take out those 2 assholes and you were, and another dream would be, I don't think we're as far off. Remember, we only lost that race when we had that great candidate, I can't think of his name, in Missouri by 3 points, that Senate race. He ended up having to go and because of PTSD, he went and he got some, went to go get, I'm not thinking of the right words. I don't want to say something offensive, but to go see therapists and get help. And that, I can't think of who it was. I mean, we've got a great candidate running against Hawley. I mean,
Colin Allred is tied right now with Ted Cruz.
Right.
So
Well, he's tied. Powell is up 1 against Rick Scott in Florida in the last poll. And again, I don't trust polls, but I do trust, like, what I'm saying is, and in the House, it's a shame, but I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has a plus 20-something district. We're not beating her. I would like to have I'd like to have a great showing and have her win by single digits. That would send a message. But Boebert, is one. Chip Roy can be taken out.
Chip Roy is over here. Yeah, he should be taken out.
Sessions, who was named by Lev Parnas. There are a number of these guys, of these sort of faces of MAGA, you can call them, who we can kick their asses, and if we can even expand our lead in the Senate by knocking out a few of those folks. We're going to lose West Virginia. We would have lost it if that jackass Manchin had stayed there anyhow. But if we can hold all the rest of our seats,
how is Sherrod Brown doing over there?
If we can, I'm sorry.
How is Sherrod Brown doing right now?
He's ahead right now and stuff. And Bernie Moreno, that they picked the worst of the candidates. So I think we've got a great chance if we can expand the Senate. If we can have a route, which I see coming, by the way, in the House with how they've handled everything in the House, and pick up 30, 40, 50 seats. If we can win the presidency, not by this, but by this, and we can do what we did in 2022 and win back some more state legislatures, some more whatever, have some big ballot measures win. Ohio is after the success with the abortion ballot measure. We are now going to finally, we let the Republicans lie to us and didn't trust them, but let them have their chance to follow court rulings, to ungerrymander us. They dragged their feet the whole way because they're corrupt fucking bastards. And so now we have it on the ballot. And I wish them good luck there because it's going to win and we're going to ungerrymander. And so what I'm saying is if we have that kind of turnout, where we have victories across the board that are huge, then all you need is a couple of Republicans who are people whose politics we can't stand but are sane to step up. And all of those sheep, if MAGA gets destroyed in the election, might go in that direction. And that is, to me, is the only chance we have of like restoring the Republican Party to anything resembling what it used to be.
Well, and it is, like we've had so many Democratic wins since 2016. I mean, the turnout has been going up, the trajectory has been going up, and, also the fact that the RNC was busted before Lara took it over. So what that means to all of those down ballot races, like the Ted Cruz's, they're not going to get any of the, they're not getting any money.
Thank you for saying that, because that's usually part of my analysis and I missed it. And that is such a hugely important point. When Lara said on Fox, I was on, I don't know if you know who Tony Michaels is. He curses a lot.
I
love him.
I like him. Yeah.
For some people, I think he's terrific. And
I've seen you on there, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were laughing at the Lara Trump thing because she sat there and said, the RNC is going to be about Trump first and foremost. That's not what its biggest job is to get the president elected. Yes,
Mhm.
but their rule of their sort of order of operations, if you will, from what I'm hearing, and it seems they're saying is first money goes to Trump's legal bills. Second, money goes to Trump's campaign, and then everybody
getting him elected, and that's all that matters. Yep.
The state parties are going to be starved of money. There's usually large transfers of cash from the national organization. So if it was on the Democratic side, it'd be the DNC to the DCCC, which they'll do, the DNC to the DSCC. Usually that happens on the Republican side too. It's not going to happen to bail out their House and Senate members. It's not going to go to state parties to help their state legislative.
They don't have any offices. They don't have an office in Michigan right now because
and they're closing down all their minority outreach offices, which help them make inroads. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like her taking over, we were all in agreement there. Sometimes, strange bedfellows. I would have voted for her for RNC chief if I had a vote. I was all for it. Laura Trump.
It's such a fascist move, though. It really is. It's such a fascist move to put your daughter-in-law.
They're making it part of everything becomes part of the family.
That's what they want to do to the country. That's what they want to do.
Well, and what a set of pipes on her, huh? With all the auto tuning and everything. Did you guys hear that?
I've cut it down to only one line because I think I have offended some people when I included 2 lines. 12 seconds is too long of her in any video where I mock her. So now I only include about the one line for about 4 or 5 seconds because we have to mock her for sounding like a screeching banshee.
Yeah,
seriously.
I don't understand those people.
So I wanted to kind of circle back around to sort of, talking about the Democrats and just kind of, we have such a deep bench, and you had covered it on your Blue Amp channel with the Hunter Biden,
there was that Tony Bobulinski. I showed a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's almost like, when you watch a movie and somebody is caught in the middle of a gang of people and they keep running in one direction and getting punched or pushed back into the middle and they can't escape. Like Bobulinski would run in one direction and AOC would rip him. He'd run in the other direction and Jared Moskowitz would kick the crap out of him. He'd go this way and Raskin would destroy him. He'd go that way.
And Lev Parnas was having it. Yeah, him and Lev Parnas were getting into it.
I did. I put out a video on what Parnas had to say too, because he was terrific. But but the talent evident on that one committee, there are a dozen at least on that one committee that are amazing.
Yes.
That's a judiciary, and the oversight committee also has a bunch of superstars.
They do. So I mean, we really, and again, as I say, also look, you got to look at Newsom, you got to look at Whitmer, you got to look around at some of the governors that have won around the country who are terrific. Some of the attorneys general that are absolutely fantastic. Like
your governor, what is your governor over there? Governor, I call him Pringles.
He's
Governor
a schmuck, but he's just a slightly less offensive schmuck.
She's talking about my governor, Governor Pritzker. Yes.
You're DeWine. You have DeWine, right? Oh, he's awful.
Yeah.
Oh, no. He's great. I thought you meant DeWine. I was simply saying during the early days of COVID, DeWine was as good as any Democrat.
Okay, he was doing pretty good. Yeah.
And then,
but I remember him back in the 80s.
Let the right cow him and scare him. And, and he still has vetoed some of their worst excesses, their worst bills. So I'm not going to I'm going to, again, be honest and not be somebody who just says, well, all Republicans are the same. I mean, most are terrible, but there's different shades of terrible. He's not DeSantis.
Not as bad as some of them. Not as bad as my governor.
He still believes in governing. He still is from far enough back that he does believe in governing. Way too far to the right. He's always been he's always led with his Catholicism, so he's always been an anti-gay, anti-Catholic bigot. But on guns and on the environment, there's a few things he's been a little more moderate on. He's not as bad as some of those other Republicans. But the problem is like that old guard, who enabled the lunatics coming up next.
I know.
Are all done now. Kasich ended up endorsing Biden and is no longer in the Republican Party. Voinovich passed away. Portman just went running away back to his wealthy family, and DeWine's going to end up doing the same. And those have been the 4 big Republican names in Ohio politics for 3-4 decades.
Yeah.
And what you see what's coming up next. J.D. Vance, what's his face?
I know.
Jim
I was
Jordan.
so upset about.
Jim Jordan. I mean, Jim Jordan is so offensive and so unlikable that he won't be able to win statewide. They won't be stupid enough. I mean, I hope they're stupid enough to put him up statewide, but I don't think they will be.
He's not running for anything for Senate this time.
He's running for his district again, and his district is actually ranked. This is not me saying this. It is ranked in the top 10 most gerrymandered districts in the country.
I believe that.
If you look at it, it doesn't look like any piece you could fit into a puzzle. It is ludicrous.
Yeah, so, I know. Texas is really badly gerrymandered too.
That's the only explanation, right? That's the only explanation for why this joker is still in office.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, even back in the day, before the Republican Party went as crazy, and before gerrymandering was like this, you guys may remember B1 Bob Dornan, who was a lunatic.
Yes. I mean, oh my God. Yes.
There will always be a few of them who will sneak through, but the difference is
Louis Gohmert.
There used to be a dozen of them that were backbenchers that even the other Republicans were like, they're fucking nuts and didn't listen to. I mean, because there are going to be some districts that are, I mean, if you go to certain places, like Idaho, it's a pretty rural state, I mean, there are certain states where you're not going to find enough, even without gerrymandering, they're going to send some people like that. But though that should be, the clown car of anywhere between 1 and 2 dozen Republicans who nobody listens to is what.
And they would hide them away on committees, but they were, you would never, or they, cut them off. I remember Louis Gohmert was always being cut off. They would never let him finish.
Right. The other Republicans couldn't stand. So, I mean, you're always going to have that. And because of, our constitutional system, sadly, not sadly overall, but on this issue of the ridiculousness of the 2 senators per state, no matter the population, we're always going to end up having from certain, when you look at the states, there will be the very least a dozen lunatic Republican senators in any Senate, because there are going to be enough of them that could get elected from places like Oklahoma and from Wyoming. But this is why, again, this was the lack of being on offense and urgency from Democrats. I mean, you think back to moments like, and I get it, Obama was the first Black president and probably felt he had to tread carefully. But my God, you think of that 6 months when we had 60 votes, how we didn't add DC as a state.
I know.
How
it really wasn't. Remember Al Franken didn't get in till later because they didn't.
But we did have about 6 months. We had a lot less time than we should have had.
I think we only ended up having like a couple months.
First of all, there shouldn't be anything that we even refer to in the fucking 21st century as a territory. I mean, I don't know if we're still talking manifest destiny here or something, but I spent the summer before I got into grad school living, on St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's simply no reason. Stacey Plaskett is amazing. One of the most effective members of Congress, and doesn't get to vote. And
I know.
Every one of those.
How about DC?
Puerto Rico should get a referendum because they get to make that decision. Although, I mean, deciding to be a territory and get all of the negatives and none of the positives seems insane to me. But, they should get that. But if Puerto Rico wants to join, I mean, between Puerto Rico, DC, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, it shouldn't we shouldn't just be talking about DC. We always have a too limited a view. You want to undo South Dakota, Wyoming, these places where nobody lives but a bunch of cows, but they get 2 senators who are Republicans.
I know.
Make sure that the Marianas Islands, make sure the 4 or 5 territories we have out there.
That's what we can do to
2 senators in the very same way. Hawaii gets 2. Why the hell shouldn't the Virgin Islands get 2? It doesn't make any sense.
And I think it does go back to, what we were saying before, kind of this like playing by a different set of rules and the timidity, where when you did have that brief time, you take advantage of it. You don't worry about, well, if we do this, then they're going to do this. They're going to do it to us.
I don't think that
kind of attitude exists. I really don't think Democrats do understand now that you've got to get it done.
And I think how we know it. Well, we know it because we've seen, even with bare majorities, what Joe and Kirsten Sinema and what's his face, Manchin trying to screw everything up.
And we still got
what Biden's been able to do is historic.
Yes.
But I would add to that, they used to refer to the states as the laboratories of democracy. We've seen in 2 states where, we, for the first time since FDR, we picked up state house chambers from the same party as the president in office in a midterm.
I know.
And we didn't just pick up one of them, we picked up 5. And the fact that we picked up both the state house and state senate in both Michigan and Minnesota, where we had Democratic governors. So we've actually seen, if in Washington we act anything like they did, my God, what they did in the first sort of 120 days on every single issue we all care about. They passed everything. Like they went forward and they didn't give a damn about Republicans whining and complaining and passed everything. And so I do think we've learned. I do think
I do too.
I think the first thing we got to do is get rid of the filibuster if we get it, because so many things didn't get through because the filibuster.
Yeah.
Well, that's that's the most self. That's the very basis of, even if we, let's say, have my dream night, for the Senate. And we take over the House, obviously, by a big margin and whatever, but we have my dream night for the Senate and knock off Rick Scott and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and every other seat and end up, with our, instead of our 51 seats right now, I think we have 51, right? Or is it 52? I'm trying to think.
We have 51. We have
51,
Yeah, 51.
Yeah.
We end up
got the one in
we end up with-
Pennsylvania.
So we lose Manchin, but we pick up the other 3. We end up with 53. You still that's not going to be, and even if a couple crazy things happen, right? And we win in a few places where, we've been doing a lot better in Alaska. It turns out, unlike a lot of the rest of the West, libertarians in Alaska are actually kind of libertarian. They don't just say it; they kind of believe in it.
I know.
And we got a lot.
That's why
we got a lot
Murkowski
closer. That was one of the states where Biden gained the most, even though he lost it from where Hillary was in 2016. Mary Peltola beat Sarah Palin. So if we pulled out some kind of crazy victory, which we could, in that Senate seat in Alaska, and picked up a seat there too. I'm not saying there could even be a couple others that just shock us, right? But
Texas.
Even if those, Texas is that wouldn't shock me. That needs to happen.
Really?
I'm talking about the second tier. I'm talking about Texas and Florida are the first tier. Missouri's second tier, and then third tier is a place like Alaska. If we end up doing that, and even then, there's no way. There's just no possible math where we could get to, if we had the best night ever imaginable, could get to higher than 54 or so votes in the Senate. So you're going to have to get rid of the filibuster to do all these things.
Oh yeah,
we just have.
We have to.
Well,
And I think that's
do something about the Supreme Court. We have to do something about the court.
Well, as you know, that's how you do something about the Supreme Court.
Exactly. You get rid of the filibuster.
Right. And then you say, hey, guess what?
We want 13. Yeah.
Well, I wish they would make the argument, they actually annoy me with that too, is because they should make, it's kind of like we make an argument about democracy when it comes to fighting Republicans. It's not just about partisanship. It's the same thing with the Supreme Court. Like, I don't think most people understand that we have not changed the number of Supreme Court justices now in 160 or 170 years. Do you know how much bigger this country has gotten in that time?
Like, how many circuit courts? How many circuit courts do we have now?
13.
13, right?
There should be 13 justices.
They need. I don't even think it's. I mean, if you're asking me, I think it's actually. I think we need something more. 17 at the very least. I would try to get up even higher. The Supreme Court takes 1/10 of 1% of the cases because they don't have the ability to look at more cases. It's not even about on a partisan basis. It's about on like things that need to be looked at or ignored. And it would also be a way of depoliticizing the court, because you could do what these other courts do, where 9 justices picked at random decide certain issues. And if you end up with, if you've got a huge number of justices to pick from, you by definition, you've depoliticized some of that. So the right can't hijack the court in the same way. Like
I think the fear though is that
13 would be, I'll finish this and just say 13 would be great compared to 9, but I'm much more in the camp of 17 or 21.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the fear is that we'll enlarge it to 13 or 17 or whatever, and then the Republicans will come in and they'll enlarge it to 21, and then it'll just keep going and going and going.
But that's fine then, because that'll depoliticize it even further. I mean, like I don't want them to put like their right wing nuts on there. But here's what I would say to you.
That's what they'll do.
First of all, we just had that very conversation a minute ago about, don't worry about what Republicans
Yeah, I know.
do it anyhow. If you don't think that the moment they decide it's beneficial to add to the court and that 6-3 isn't enough, they won't add 3 more, I got news for you. They will. Second of all, if you get up to 13 or 17 or whatever, them adding a couple justices doesn't do nearly as much damage, does it? Because you've already added a bunch of your own. So really, in every way I can think of, it makes sense to do.
So, we were talking, just to go back. So, with the impeachment hearings, when we had Lev Parnas, and I don't know if you watched Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide this past week. He had Lev on.
I mean, I gotta be honest with you, like I because of the combination of my doing what I do for my channel, going on shows, my email fundraising business, I have still 1 or 2 PR clients, and more important than all that combined, my wife and kids, and whatever. Sadly, I honestly almost never watch anybody else's podcasts or whatever, and it is not because I don't like them or whatever. I just can't. I would be doing politics 24/7. I need to go home and watch some sports or watch a great streaming TV show or a great movie, or I need to get away from it. So
100%
that's my response to no disrespect to Hal, who I've met.
No, of course not.
Great guy and is funny as hell.
Yeah, well,
but he had Lev Parnas on. Yeah,
in hour 3 this past week. I think, what day was that? I think it was Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah,
I believe
Wednesday when Phil was on. When Phil comes on Wednesday.
So anyway, so hour 3 he came on, and he actually he was saying that he doesn't think that Trump is going to make it. That there's a lot of conversations going on the right and with these whatever non-MAGA Republicans, that he just isn't going to have the numbers that he thinks he's going to have. But the other thing, and I just wanted to
wait, I don't understand. What do you mean? He's not going to have
that people are saying that they're supporting him and they're not going to support him.
Oh, you mean just that he's going to lose?
Yes, that he's going to lose.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
I honestly, I am fully. I would look you in the face right now and say, barring the kind of natural or unnatural disaster that changes everything, barring that or them wholesale hacking the machines, which always worries me.
I know. That's what I'm afraid of cheating.
I honestly would give Trump at this point a 3 in 100 chance of winning. Like, I don't think I think he's done.
Stuart Stevens thinks it's going to be the opposite of like the Reagan landslide over Carter.
That's what I mean. Again, that's what I think.
I'll go with that.
I think the polarization and rage in rural areas is such that it won't be quite in terms of electoral votes the Reagan landslide, because he'll win. What I disrespectfully, especially as a Midwesterner, but the city I come from, the place I come from, has cities in it. The 15 or so states I call the cow states. He's going to win those no matter what. So it's not going to be a 48 state or whatever type thing. He'll, he's not losing Oklahoma. He's not losing South Dakota.
No,
he's not losing those kinds of places.
Alabama.
I mean? Yeah. But I do think it's going to be, I would say about a 32, 33 to 17 state kind. I mean, I do think at this moment, if the trajectory keeps going with Trump still keeps spouting off his stupid shit, the House continues it's being dysfunctional. The courts keep passing these ridiculous, crazy rulings. We stay excited. We stay out there. The RNC is broke, and we get out there with our money and do our thing. I think Ohio, I think Florida, I think Iowa, and I think Texas, we add to the states that we won last time. But again, these, I am putting the caveat that all this has to continue, and no one can predict the future. And like, if an asteroid suddenly, hits, all dead. But
well, we know Rush is going to get involved. We've already
Point being,
been,
right.
you know.
Point being is Vladimir Putin is a huge, wild card who's going to do everything he can to help Trump. So will other people, so the only reason why I won't say I have that confidence is because I have to have the confidence that there's no way these sons of bitches can break into machines or do other things. And I don't fully have that confidence yet. So
well, they're very unorganized, and they don't know what they're doing over at the RNC, because they're trying to get people to, monitor the booths, the polling places, I guess. But I don't know how they're even going to organize anything. They just don't seem to know what they're doing over there, because they're making everybody take a loyalty test.
No, I don't think they're doing so many things wrong and badly, because again, everything, as it always is about the spoiled little baby, who didn't get the swing that he wants when he's 5 years old and screams and yells and throws a tantrum, and everything, culture is defined from the top down, and it's coming from Trump. So he's also putting in positions of power all the little babies just like him, the complainers, the whiners, the angry people, the losers in life. So I honestly, even with a shitty, terrible media and some of the other things out there, I mean, we just raised $25 million last night with the thing presidents.
I know 26 million.
There you go.
Obama,
26. That's actually, do you know the RNC right now has 33 million on hand in one night.
Wow.
We raised, what is that, 4/5? I don't have the power to do math right now.
Yeah.
We before last night had something like 150 million or something like that. So I'm just saying, like, I if I could believe, and also the problem also is they will go in states where where the Republicans control the apparatus, they will do everything kind of trick people not to vote, to suppress votes. So
and the AI worries me.
Right, we have to get past all of that. Yeah. If you said to me right now, if I knew there's gonna be an honest election, and every person who intends to vote, who's legally able to vote, it goes out and votes the way they want, and it gets counted, I would tell you that in my mind, then that there would be I think I'd say there's zero chance Donald Trump wins the election. But I can't be confident of that. I can't be confident they can find a way to suppress certain votes, hack certain machines.
We're just gonna have to just keep, making sure everybody gets out there and votes and checks their voter registration and do all the things that we're going to do anyway.
Yeah, well, that's really the only thing that we can do. Work our asses off, talk to everybody that we know, do whatever we can, phone bank, text bank, write postcards, door knock, and just and this is the whole thing, honestly, Cliff, why we started this is because we don't think that there are too many voices, when it comes to sounding the alarm on all this stuff. There's so much at stake with Project 2025. You just have to listen to any of the clips from CPAC to know what they want to do.
We won't, if they're, again, there's winning the election, and then, will they do the worst of what they've said they're going to do? Will they, but I don't want to be in a situation where I have to wonder and see, what happens afterwards, because if they do the stuff they say they're going to do, we won't resemble what we currently.
We will not be the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to. So thank you, Cliff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
And
amazing.
we will link to all of your great work to Blue Amp channel, and we thank you for all of the work that you do to speak truth to power, and in the effort to save democracy, and just kind of make it so that we can restore rights to women, and
protect rights.
Have a fighting chance, for the regular people, and not just the multinational corporations. Yeah.
Maybe and resume where we were, before all of this, and there've been, Reagan was some of it, and Gingrich and whatever, but really, to me, the tipping point in a negative direction, obviously Obama and Biden have done a lot of great stuff, but where we started to really go in that negative direction is when Bush and Cheney took over in 2000. And stack the courts. That's where it began. If we can resume what we were up to before that, which was expanding rights for people, expanding economic opportunity for people, that kind of thing, then we'll have done what we should be doing and need to be doing.
Yeah, and the great thing is we're smarter now. Right? We are
more, and just a little bit more cynical and untrusting.
Yes.
How about
How about that? Well, anyway, thank you again so much. We really appreciate you taking
thank you,
time out of
Cliff.
your busy schedule to join us. And we would love
My
to have
pleasure.
you on again if you have time. But as we get closer to the election, in the DNC convention in Chicago. So by the way, real quick, are you coming to Chicago?
Hadn't decided yet. I think there's a good chance I will. Yes.
Okay.
I think it's likely.
Well, maybe we'll meet you
with
there.
it being so close and all of that, I think chances are I'll be there.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thanks again, Cliff.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Seriously, I
Cliff.
appreciate it. Always great talking to you guys. So
Great
thank you.
talking to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
On a